I hit rock bottom while everyone watched. Then I did the one thing they never expected: die. Didn't fall quietly. That's the part that still burns the most when I think about it. Some people hit rock bottom in private, behind closed doors, in silence, in places where no one is watching closely enough to remember every mistake, every crack in their voice, every wrong decision. That wasn't me when I fell. It happened in full view. Family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, people who used to look at me with respect, people who once said they believed in me, people who smiled when things were going well and slowly disappeared when they weren't. They all saw it, and worse than that, they talked about it. At first, it was subtle. Concern dressed up as curiosity. Questions that sounded caring but carried judgment underneath. Are you okay? What happened to you? You don't seem like yourself anymore. Then the tone changed. Whispers replaced questions. Advice turned into criticism. Sympathy turned into distance. Distance turned into silence. And silence. That silence was louder than anything anyone ever said to my face. I didn't notice it at first. When you're still standing, you convince yourself you're fine. You tell yourself it's temporary. Just a rough phase. A bad season. Something you'll bounce back from quickly. I told myself all of that, but the truth was, I was already slipping. Slowly at first, almost politely. Like life didn't want to scare me too badly, so it loosened its grip little by little. It started with small losses: confidence, sleep, the ability to feel proud of myself. I'd wake up already tired. Not physically, emotionally. Like my mind had been running all night. Replaying conversations, replaying mistakes. Replaying moments where I should have said something different or acted faster or been better. I used to be the one people came to for answers, for help, for solutions. I liked that. Maybe too much. I built my identity around being dependable, capable, solid. So when things started going wrong, I didn't know how to ask for help. Strong people aren't supposed to fall apart. That's what I believed. Strong people push through. They fix things. They handle it, so I smiled when I needed to cry. I nodded when I wanted to scream. I said I'm fine so often that it started to sound true. Even to me, until it wasn't. The first real crack came when I lost the one thing that made me feel useful. The job. It wasn't dramatic. No big scene. No shouting. Just a quiet meeting in a small room with neutral walls and a manager who couldn't quite meet my eyes. We're going in a different direction. That sentence followed me home like a shadow. I sat in my car afterward, hands still on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead like if I didn't move, time would stop. Like if I stayed there long enough, none of it would be real. But it was real, and by the time I walked through my front door, I already felt smaller. Losing the job didn't just take away income. It took structure, purpose, routine, a reason to get up early, a reason to feel like I mattered. I told people I was between opportunities. That sounded better than I failed. At first, people were supportive. They always are in the beginning. They told me things would work out, that something better would come along, that I was too smart to stay down for long. I believed them. Then weeks passed, then months. Applications went out. Interviews came and went. Polite rejection emails filled my inbox. We've decided to move forward with another candidate. Each one chipped away at me, and slowly the support faded. The messages stopped. The invitations became less frequent. The check-in calls turned into silence. I noticed how conversations changed when I walked into a room. How people avoided talking about work around me. How jokes felt forced. How eyes lingered just a second too long. Like they were measuring how far I had fallen. I started staying home more. It was easier that way, At home, no one asked questions. No one watched me. No one saw the disappointment on my face when another opportunity fell through. But being alone with your thoughts is dangerous, when those thoughts are already turning against you. Days blurred together. Morning lost its meaning. Night came too fast. I stopped taking care of myself the way I used to. Not dramatically. Just enough that I noticed and hated myself for noticing. Clothes stayed unfolded. Meals became whatever was easiest. Sleep became irregular, either too much or not enough. And the worst part wasn't the struggle itself. It was knowing people were watching. I'd catch looks when I ran into someone at the store. That half smile that said, "I heard about you." Conversations that stayed shallow, safe, distant. No one said it out loud. I felt it. He's not doing well. He used to have it together. What happened to him? Eventually, I stopped running into people altogether. I changed my routine. I went out at odd hours. I avoided familiar places. I made myself smaller so I wouldn't be noticed. Rock bottom doesn't always arrive with a crash. Sometimes it creeps up quietly, sits next to you, and waits until you finally look at your life and don't recognize it anymore. The day I realized how far I'd fallen was ordinary. That's what makes it unforgettable. I was sitting alone, staring at a screen, pretending to look for opportunities. When my phone buzzed, a family group message. Something about a gathering, a celebration. I wasn't mentioned directly, but I knew what it meant. They didn't expect me to. Come. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I put the phone down and felt something heavy settle in my chest. I wasn't just struggling anymore. I was invisible, and invisibility hurts more than judgment, because judgment means people still see you. That night, I went for a walk. No destination, just movement. I needed to feel like I was going somewhere, even if I didn't know where. It was late. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet that makes your thoughts louder. I replayed everything. Where I went wrong, what I should have done differently, who I used to be, and somewhere between regret and exhaustion, something inside me broke. I sat down on a curb and stared at the ground. I remember thinking very clearly, this is it. This is rock bottom. No job, no direction, no confidence, no one expecting anything from me anymore. And the scariest part wasn't the failure. It was the feeling that maybe everyone else had already given up on me. And I was starting to believe they were right. I stayed there longer than I should have. Eventually, I stood up and walked home, but something had shifted. Because when you hit rock bottom while everyone is watching, you're left with two choices: disappear completely, or do something so unexpected that even you don't recognize yourself anymore. That night, I didn't know what that thing would be. I only knew I couldn't keep living the way I was, and I had no idea that the choice I would make next would change everything. There's a moment after you hit rock bottom that no one talks about. It's not dramatic. There's no music swelling, no sudden clarity, no heroic decision. It's just this quiet, uncomfortable space where you're still breathing, still waking up every day, but something inside you has gone numb. That's where I was. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't angry either. I was just empty. When people imagine rock bottom, they picture despair, panic, tears, desperation. But the truth is, after a while, despair gets tired. And when despair gets tired, it leaves behind something far worse: resignation. I stopped expecting things to get better. I stopped imagining a future. I stopped asking what if and started telling myself this is just how it is now. That shift didn't happen overnight. It crept in slowly, disguised as realism. I told myself I was being mature, grounded, practical, but really, I was shrinking my life to match the size of my disappointment. Mornings became mechanical. Wake up, check messages. Refresh emails. Scroll job listings that all started to look the same. Close the laptop. Repeat. I wasn't applying as aggressively anymore. Not because I didn't want a job, but because each rejection felt like reopening, a wound that never quite healed. Hope had started to feel dangerous because hope meant expectation, and expectation meant pain. So, I lowered my expectations until they barely existed at all. People noticed, they always do. Friends who hadn't checked in for months suddenly sent messages that felt off. How are you really doing? You've been quiet lately? Just making sure you're okay. I knew what those messages meant. They weren't checking in because they believed I was about to succeed. They were checking in because they were worried I was falling apart, and that did something. To me, I hated how small it made me feel. I hated that I could feel their concern wrapped in pity. I hated that I could sense the unspoken relief when I replied with something neutral. Yeah, hanging in there, taking it day by day, all good. Those replies became a shield, not because they were true, but because they ended the conversation. I learned quickly that the moment you admit you're struggling, people either try to fix you or quietly back away. Neither felt good, so I stopped explaining, stopped updating, stopped justifying, stopped defending my situation. And without realizing it, that was the first unexpected thing I did. I went quiet, not in a dramatic, attention-seeking way. In a deliberate one. I stopped posting, stopped reacting, stopped trying to look okay at first. It felt lonely, then it felt peaceful, because for the first time in months, I wasn't performing my struggle for anyone. No one was watching anymore. And in that silence, something strange happened. I started hearing myself again. Not the version of me that panicked, not the version that replayed mistakes, but a quieter voice underneath all of that. Noise, it didn't scream. It didn't demand, it just asked questions, simple ones. What do you actually want? Who are you when no one is watching? What happens if you stop trying to be understood? Those questions scared me more than failure ever did, because failure was familiar. But this required honesty. I realized I'd spent years explaining myself to everyone, explaining my choices, explaining my ambition, explaining my worth. Even now, in my lowest moment, I was still doing it, still framing my life in a way that would make sense to other people. And suddenly, I was exhausted by it. One night, I sat alone, lights off, phone face down, and made a decision. I would stop trying to convince anyone of anything. No announcements, no dramatic declarations, no watch me prove them wrong. Just silence and work. The next morning, nothing looked different, but everything felt different. I created a routine, not because I was motivated, but because I needed something to hold on to. Wake up early, move my body, eat something decent, sit down and work on one thing. Not 5 goals, not a grand plan. One thing. I didn't even tell anyone what that thing was. That was important, because the moment you tell people, expectations creep in, opinions creep in, doubt creeps in. This time, I wanted something that belonged only to me. The first few days were brutal. Motivation didn't magically appear. Confidence didn't return. I still felt like the version of myself everyone had written off, but I showed up anyway. Not because I believed it would work, but because doing nothing felt worse. There were moments I wanted to quit before I even started. Moments where the voice in my head laughed at me. Who do you think you are? You already failed. Everyone saw it. Why bother? I let that voice talk, and then I kept going anyway. That was new before that voice controlled me. Now it was just background. Noise. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. No one noticed, and that was the point. While people assumed I was still stuck, still drifting, still lost. I was quietly rebuilding something they couldn't see yet. Not success. Identity. I wasn't chasing external validation anymore. I wasn't measuring progress by other people's reactions. I measured it by consistency. Did I show up today? Did I do the work? Did I quit early or push a little further? Some days the answer was yes. Some days it wasn't, but I stopped beating myself up for imperfect days. That was another unexpected thing. I stopped hating myself for being human. I realized how much energy I'd wasted punishing myself for not meeting imaginary standards. Standards I never chose. Standards handed to me by family, society, and the version of myself I used to be. Letting go of those standards felt like breathing after holding my breath for years. I didn't become confident overnight, but I became steady. And steadiness is more powerful than confidence. Confidence depends on results. Steadiness depends on commitment. Slowly, something inside me hardened in the best way. Not bitterness. Resolve. I stopped fantasizing about proving people wrong. I stopped imagining their reactions. I stopped caring if anyone ever noticed. That's when the real shift happened, because the moment you stop needing witnesses, your life becomes yours again. And ironically, that's usually when people start paying attention. I didn't know it yet, but cracks were forming in the story people told about me, the story where I was the cautionary tale, the story where I never recovered, the story where I faded out quietly. They didn't know it yet, but I was about to do the one thing they never expected. Not loudly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. And when it finally surfaced, it would force everyone to reconsider who they are. Thought I was, including me. People like to believe they can tell when someone is finished. They think failure has a certain look, a certain posture, a certain energy, and once they decide, you're done. They stop checking for updates. That's the most dangerous part, because silence doesn't always mean stagnation. Sometimes it means momentum is building underground. By the time people noticed something had changed about me, it was already too late to stop it. The first sign wasn't dramatic. It wasn't success splashed across social media or a big announcement. It was subtle. People started asking questions, not the concerned ones anymore, different ones. So, what are you up to these days? I heard you've been busy. You seem different. They couldn't quite place it, and honestly, neither could I at first. I just knew I wasn't the same person who had hit rock bottom. That version of me lived in constant reaction mode, reacting to judgment, reacting to disappointment, reacting to fear. This version of me was intentional, quietly, focused, grounded, uninterested in noise. What people didn't understand was that I hadn't been working toward revenge, validation, or redemption. I'd been working toward alignment for the first time in my life. My actions matched who I was becoming, and that changed everything. Opportunities don't usually arrive with fireworks. They slip in sideways, a message from someone who hadn't taken me seriously before, a small opening where they're used to be a closed door, a chance to step in when no one else wanted the responsibility. That's how it started. I said yes when others hesitated. I stepped up when no one expected me to. I handled things calmly where chaos used to. Live, and people noticed, not because I told them to, but because results speak louder than recovery stories. I didn't announce my growth, I demonstrated it. There was a moment, very specific, that I'll never forget. I was sitting in a room with people who had once looked at me like a liability, like a burden, like someone who needed help instead of offering value. Now they were listening, actually listening, waiting for my input, trusting my judgment, following my lead. The shift was almost surreal. I remember catching myself thinking, when did this happen? And then it hit me. It didn't happen suddenly. It happened quietly, consistently, when no one was watching anymore. The irony wasn't lost on me. The same people who had written me off now spoke about me differently, not with pity, not with doubt, with respect. Some tried to rewrite history. They'd say things like, "I always knew you'd figure it out," or "You just needed time." I let them believe that because the truth was, they didn't need to admit they doubted me. I already knew, and it didn't matter anymore. That's another thing people don't talk about. Healing doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like peace. I wasn't angry at them. I wasn't resentful. I understood something deeper now. Most people don't doubt you because they hate. You doubt you because they can't imagine surviving what you're going through. Their disbelief is a reflection of their limits, not yours. Once I truly understood that, I stopped needing their approval. That's when everything accelerated. Confidence started to show up naturally. Not loud, not arrogant, solid. The kind that comes from knowing you can trust yourself. I trusted my decisions. I trusted my instincts. I trusted my ability to adapt. And when challenges came, I didn't spiral. I adjusted. People began to rely on me, not because I demanded authority, but because I stayed steady under pressure. That's when the final twist of the story revealed itself. I hadn't just climbed out of rock bottom. I had gained something most people never do: perspective. I knew what it felt like to be underestimated, to be dismissed, to be watched while falling. So when others struggled, I didn't judge. I understood, and that made me dangerous in the best way, because empathy paired with competence is powerful. I became the solution, not by proving people wrong, but by solving problems they didn't know how to handle. That's the thing they never expected. They expected me to either disappear or come back bitter. They didn't expect me to return calm, capable, grounded. They didn't expect me to lead, and they definitely didn't expect me to succeed without needing their validation. The final moment that sealed it wasn't applause or recognition, it was silence. The good kind. The kind where no one questions your place in the room. The kind where your presence feels obvious, earned. I stood there, years removed from my lowest point, and realized something profound. Rock bottom didn't destroy me. It stripped me. It took away everything that wasn't essential. Every excuse, every illusion, every version of myself that depended on approval. What remained was resilience, clarity, and a quiet confidence that doesn't need witnesses. If you're watching this and you're still at your lowest point, hear this clearly. The people watching you fall don't get to decide how your story ends, and you don't need to announce your comeback. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to convince anyone. Sometimes the most powerful move is silence. Work in the dark, grow where no one claps. Become so solid that when you finally stand up again, no one can deny it. They watched me hit rock bottom. What they didn't expect was that it would be the place where I learned exactly who I am.